The night Jason Reed transferred the last $20 million from his joint account with his wife, he thought he was escaping failure. He had no idea that the failed designer he just abandoned was actually the hidden billionaire CEO who signed his paychecks. While he celebrated his engagement to his wealthy boss, Victoria Hale, believing he'd traded struggle for status, Elena Carter Reed sat alone in the dim light of their empty office. The same office that secretly operated as the headquarters of Aurelia Holdings, a global conglomerate she'd built in silence for nearly a decade. At 9:43 p.m., as Jason and Victoria toasted champagne over stolen millions, an email hit his inbox. He never opened a confidential board notice reading, "Aurelia Holdings CEO to assume full control of Hale Tech pending merger approval." But he was too busy whispering promises of forever to the woman who'd soon be standing in front of cameras, flaunting his stolen fortune, to notice that the empire he thought belonged to his boss had always been his wife's. He emptied her account. He mocked her failure. He left her for power. But what happens when he discovers she was the power, the very empire he betrayed? How would the man who traded his wife for wealth react when the broken woman he discarded became the only one who could destroy his new marriage, his company, and his name? And what would Elena Carter Reed do when the husband who stole everything realized he'd been living off her empire all along? Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we begin, please click subscribe. Every single click helps us tell stories of courage and truth. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because when we share these stories together, we remind each other that even in pain, we can rise. Elena Carter Reed was 35, the kind of woman who carried calm like armor. To the world, she was a soft-spoken interior designer whose business had folded under bad timing. To those who mattered, and there were very few, she was the silent architect behind Aurelia Holdings, a private investment empire born out of grief and persistence after her mentor Arthur Lynn's death. But no one ever saw that side of her, not even Jason. Their marriage had begun 12 years earlier, when Jason was a smooth-talking corporate salesman with a dazzling smile and no savings, and Elena was an ambitious dreamer building her first design firm from their one-bedroom apartment. He had charm, she had vision. Together they'd seemed unstoppable. But success reveals cracks long before failure does. That morning, the marble floors of their house gleamed like nothing had gone wrong, except for the silence between them. Jason stood by the window, scrolling through messages, his expensive watch glinting under the sunlight. He was 38, fit, polished, and utterly intoxicated by power. His boss, Victoria Hale, had been grooming him for months. Not for promotion, but possession. "Don't wait up tonight," Jason muttered, tightening his tie. "Victoria needs me at the office." Elena looked up from the invoices scattered across the table. The office or her penthouse? Her voice didn't tremble, it simply cut through the air. He didn't answer. He never did anymore. As the door closed, Elena's hand brushed against a small leather notebook, the one Arthur Lynn had given her years ago. Inside, her handwriting curved in blue ink. "Stay invisible until it's necessary to be seen." She pressed her thumb over the line, a faint smile breaking through the fatigue. That was Arthur's rule, and her survival. For months, whispers of a merger between Hale Tech and Aurelia had been circulating. To Jason, it was just another ladder to climb. To Elena, it was an omen. She knew Victoria Hale, 40s, poised, ruthless, the kind of woman who never looked directly at someone she considered beneath her. Once, Elena had met her at a charity dinner. Victoria's perfume had filled the air like a warning. "Your husband speaks highly of you," Victoria had said then, her lips curving in a smile that never reached her eyes. "I suppose every man needs a muse." Now, months later, Jason would become that woman's trophy, and Elena the discarded muse. The phone buzzed on the counter. A notification from the joint bank account blinked. Her breath caught $20 million withdrawn in a single transaction. She opened the banking app, the digits spinning down to zero. Transfer recipient, Victoria Hale. Authorized by Jason Reed. Her knees weakened. For a moment she felt her heartbeat in her throat, not from shock but recognition. She'd known this day was coming. She just hoped he'd choose differently. When she walked into the bank 2 hours later, she was met with polite regret. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Reed," the manager said softly. Your husband had full authorization. The funds are gone. Outside, the wind bit her face. She stared at the city skyline towers of glass and ambition. She'd helped design one of those buildings years ago, back when Jason still believed in her dreams. Now he's stealing them, she thought. Flashback. She saw herself younger, in worn jeans, sitting across from Arthur Lynn in his office. He'd been old then, frail but brilliant, his voice barely a whisper. Elena, power isn't about showing the world your strength. It's about knowing when to let them think you're weak. That lesson had built her empire. Aurelia Holdings wasn't just a company. It was a fortress of carefully hidden subsidiaries, tech, real estate, finance, all operating under names Jason had never questioned. He thought her late nights were desperation. They were dominion. The sound of laughter snapped her back. Across the street, a newsstand played a clip on its screen. Jason Reed and Victoria Hale spotted at dinner, rumored engagement. Jason's hand rested possessively on Victoria's thigh as cameras flashed. Elena didn't flinch. She just whispered, "Perfect timing." When she returned home that evening, the rooms already looked different. His suit's gone, drawers empty, scent erased. On the dining table sat a note in Jason's handwriting. "You'll be fine, Elena. I need a woman who understands business." She folded the note neatly, slipped it into a drawer, and opened her laptop. The Aurelia interface glowed blue. Her login name read simply, E.C.L. A message from her executive assistant appeared on screen. "Ma'am, Hale Tech has proposed a 40% equity trade in the merger. They believe Aurelia's owner is a foreign investor. Shall we proceed as planned?" Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Then she typed, "Proceed, and prepare the correction files. It's time." The scene lingered on her face, calm, distant, dangerous. Far away, in a penthouse lined with crystal and deception, Jason lifted a glass of champagne. "To new beginnings," he said, clinking glasses with Victoria. Victoria smirked. "To upgrades." But as the camera panned over their laughter, the reflection in the window flickered. The city skyline they celebrated was owned by Aurelia Holdings, by her. Elena sat in silence, the faint hum of her computer echoing like a heartbeat. The words from Arthur's final letter glowed on her desk lamp. "One day, they'll mistake silence for defeat. Let them. Silence is your storm before the strike." She closed the notebook, leaned back, and whispered, "Let's see how loud silence can be." The faint glimmer of her wedding ring caught the light before she slipped it off, setting it beside the monitor. A tiny circle of gold that once symbolized love, now redefined as evidence. For the first time in years, her eyes hardened, not from anger, but from clarity. The story of her failure was about to become the story of his ruin. Send to the clean out. The morning began with a single vibration, the kind that slices through silence like a warning. Elena's phone buzzed once, twice, then again. She blinked at the screen, still half asleep, the taste of bitter coffee from last night clinging to her mouth. Bank alert, $20 million withdrawal, joint account. For a moment, her mind refused to process the number. The room around her, the unmade bed, the half-folded laundry, the photo of her and Jason at the ribbon cutting of her failed boutique all blurred into static. Then her pulse started to hammer. "No," she whispered, scrolling through the notifications, each line confirming the same transfer. Recipient, Victoria Hale. Authorized by Jason Reed. Her hand trembled, but her face hardened, controlled. The training of a woman who'd spent a lifetime hiding storms behind calm eyes. She threw on a coat, the morning light spilling through the blinds like an interrogation. Cut to the bank lobby, pristine marble, air-conditioned detachment. He's with apologetic eyes, shuffled papers as if the motion itself could soften betrayal. "Mrs. Reed," he said gently, "the transfer was authorized with full credentials. There's nothing we can reverse." Elena's voice barely rose above a whisper. "He moved all of it?" He nodded. "Every cent." The pen in her hand cracked between her fingers. She stared at the shards of plastic, watching the ink bleed into her palm, a small, quiet symbol of what he'd done. Cut to Jason's new world, a penthouse glittering with glass and greed. Victoria Hale lounged on a cream sofa, barefoot, sipping champagne at 10 in the morning. Jason, in a tailored suit, watched his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window. He grinned. 20 million, he said, swirling his glass. I told you she'd fold the moment real pressure hit. She was my charity project, Vic. You're my upgrade. Victoria's laugh was low, practiced. You think money makes you my equal, Jason? He slid an arm around her waist. It's a start. Behind them, the skyline shimmered, every tower quietly owned by Aurelia Holdings, Elena's empire. Cut back. Elena leaving the bank. The automatic doors opened to the noise of the street, but everything sounded distant, like she was underwater. Flashback. She's younger, exhausted, surrounded by blueprints and invoices, Jason asleep on the couch while she worked through the night. She just landed her first silent partnership deal with Lynn Financial, back before anyone knew the name Aurelia. She remembered the email from Arthur Lynn himself. We build in the dark, Elena. Let them see light only when it blinds them. Back in the present, she stands at a crosswalk, phone still in her hand, thumb hovering over Jason's contact. The screen lights up with their wedding photo, his smile bright, her eyes hopeful. For one heartbeat, she almost calls. Then her thumb slides down, deleting his number instead. Her expression doesn't break, but the faintest tremor runs through her lips before she steadies herself. The high of their love, the crash of betrayal, the stillness after impact, a perfect rhythm for retention, for empathy. The camera lingers on her reflection in a store window. The woman the world thinks is ruined. Then her reflection blinks, a flicker of steel beneath the surface. Inside the penthouse, Jason's phone buzzes. A notification he ignores flashes briefly before the screen goes dark. Incoming wire verification, Aurelia Holdings internal transfer. He laughs, pouring more champagne. Cheers to the new chapter. But Elena's quiet voice overlays the scene like a ghost. You just opened the final chapter, Jason. The music dips to silence, the emotional low before the next storm, as the audience is left wondering how a failed designer ever had 20 million to lose, and what she'll do now that it's gone. The ticking clock in Mr. Harris's office was merciless. Each click sounded like a countdown to something Elena couldn't yet name. Papers were spread across his desk, legal printouts, transfer logs, joint account authorizations, and the final verdict written in impersonal ink. No recovery. Funds transferred under mutual consent. Mr. Harris, a seasoned lawyer in his 60s with eyes that had seen every kind of betrayal, leaned back and sighed. I've reviewed everything twice, Mrs. Reed, because his name was on the account and he signed the transfer willingly. There's nothing the court can undo. Elena didn't blink. She stared at the document, the black letters swimming across the page. Her voice, when it came, was steady, the kind of calm that only arrives when the soul is too tired to break again. So, it's gone. I'm afraid so. He hesitated, studying her. But maybe this isn't the end. Her lips curved into something almost like a smile. It never is. As she rose, her hand brushed against the edge of the mahogany desk, and suddenly the world blurred, the scent of fresh coffee, the creak of a wooden chair, a flashback pulling her 8 years into the past. She was 27 again, standing inside an aging office where sunlight slanted through dusty blinds. Across the table sat Arthur Lynn, her mentor, frail but brilliant, his silver hair a halo against the glow of afternoon light. The world knew him as a reclusive investor. She knew him as the man who taught her how to build without applause. You're young, Arthur had said, sliding a folder toward her. Inside were the founding documents of a small, nameless startup. Aurelia Dynamics, he said. A quiet venture. You'll fund it, own it, and no one will ever know until you choose. She'd frowned then. Why the secrecy? Arthur's answer became the spine of her life. Power whispers, Elena. The day you speak, make sure it's final. Back to the present. The memory cracked apart like glass. She found herself staring at the city through Mr. Harris's window, towers rising, indifferent, beautiful. Those same towers were built with her money, her risk, her decisions. Yet everyone saw only Jason's ambition and her supposed failure. A single tear escaped, tracing down her cheek before she brushed it away. It wasn't grief for the money she had built fortunes before and could do it again. It was grief for the years she had mistaken dependency for partnership. She whispered, half to herself, half to the ghost of Arthur Lynn. I should have known he'd mistake silence for weakness. Outside, thunder rumbled, distant, restrained. Mr. Harris looked up, concerned. Are you sure you'll be all right? Elena turned toward the door, her voice cool, almost detached. I will be when this silence ends. As she stepped into the elevator, her reflection in the mirrored doors looked different. The same woman, but with eyes no longer clouded by illusion. The low hum of the descending lift merged with the echo of Arthur's words again, now layered with quiet promise. The day you speak, make sure it's final. Her lips parted just slightly. Then it's time to prepare my voice. The doors opened, light flooding in a soft, rising swell that hinted not at collapse, but the beginning of something far greater. Gold light spilled across the ballroom, catching the crystals that hung like frozen raindrops from the ceiling. The cameras flashed relentlessly, each click a bullet of attention Jason had always craved but never earned on his own. He stood on the crimson carpet, chin lifted, one hand casually possessive on Victoria Hale's waist. The reporters swarmed, shouting over each other. Mr. Reed, is it true you've officially joined Hale Tech as Vice President of Operations? Jason's smile gleamed half arrogance, half relief. It's true. I've finally found a team that values innovation and loyalty. He made sure the word loyalty lingered, a dagger wrapped in charm. Beside him, Victoria's lips curved into a well-rehearsed smile. She looked stunning in emerald silk, every inch the corporate goddess she wanted the world to see. Then came the question that sliced through the champagne haze. And what about Mrs. Reed? A hush followed. For the briefest second, Jason's jaw tightened. Victoria turned gracefully to face the cameras, her expression radiant, voice honeyed and cold all at once. Some women are born to support greatness, she said, pausing just long enough for the words to sting, and others, to envy it. The crowd erupted in polite laughter. Jason forced one too, but the muscles near his temple twitched. Behind them, on a towering digital billboard, shimmered the bright new logo, Aurelia Hale Tech merger talks pending. The letters gleamed gold, unnoticed by most except for the woman watching, from miles away. Cut to Elena's modest apartment. The walls were bare now, most of her furniture sold after the collapse. A soft hum from an old refrigerator filled the silence. On the flickering television screen, Jason's face shone, drunk on power. She sat on the edge of the couch, a simple sweater draped around her shoulders, the only luxury left in her space being the quiet dignity she refused to lose. Her eyes didn't leave the screen as Victoria leaned into Jason, pressing a slow, performative kiss on his lips for the cameras. The host's voice echoed through the TV. And there you have it, the power couple redefining success. Hale Tech's brightest era begins tonight. Elena's gaze sharpened. The Aurelia logo in the corner of the screen pulsed once under the spotlight. She tilted her head, realizing what the reporters didn't. Hale Tech wasn't merging with Aurelia. Hale Tech was trying to buy into it blind to the fact that Aurelia's true owner sat in that tiny apartment holding the remote. A flicker of something crossed her face, grief, resolve, memory, flashback. Jason again, 2 years earlier, pacing their home office. You're too cautious, Elena, he'd said. If we ever get into the big leagues, we'll need sharks like Victoria. She'd smiled softly. Sharks drown when they stop moving, Jason. Just remember that. The memory dissolved. Her eyes returned to the television, to Victoria's gleam, Jason's practiced smirk. The faint reflection of her face merged with theirs on the screen, for a heartbeat that betrayed watching the betrayers pretend to be kings. She whispered under her breath, sharks drown when they stop moving. The phone buzzed beside her, an encrypted notification from Aurelia's private network. Michael Grant. Ma'am, the merger contract draft just arrived. Should I flag it? Her lips parted in a small, dangerous smile. She typed back one word. No. The screen lit her face as, she added, almost to herself, let them sign it. The hum of the fridge deepened, the scene slowed. Outside her window, neon light from a distant billboard painted her in gold, the same shade that illuminated Jason and Victoria moments ago. High emotion crested quietly here. Betrayal, composure, and the first spark of revenge. The contrast between his champagne laughter and her silent clarity created a perfect retention pulse. Viewers left breathless, wondering what she was planning next. The television flickered one last time before she turned it off, plunging the room into stillness. In that silence, you could almost hear Arthur Lynn's voice again, calm, prophetic, ghostly. Power whispers, Elena. The day you speak, make sure it's final. Her eyes gleamed as she whispered back to the dark, I'm almost ready to speak. The apartment was nearly dark except for the glow of Elena's laptop screen. Outside, the city exhaled in distant hums. Engines, sirens, the broke. Occasional echo of laughter that felt like it belonged to another world. The digital clock read 11:47 p.m. Her face was calm, but the quiet was deceptive. It was the silence before detonation. She typed in a password so long it could have been a sentence. The screen shifted to black, then filled with cascading code before stabilizing on the seal of Aurelia Holdings' encrypted network, Tier 7 access. Moments later, a secure window flickered open, revealing Michael Grant, her executive assistant. Young, sharp, loyal to a fault, his tie loosened and eyes heavy from long nights. Ma'am, he said, voice low. You need to see this. She leaned closer. Talk to me. Michael shared his screen lines of authorization codes, server access grants, and digital signatures with one name flashing in red. Jason Reed. Hailtech's internal servers show he's been given provisional executive authority over Aurelia-linked accounts. Michael continued. Victoria's team pushed it through after the preliminary merger approval. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Elena's reflection flickered over the data, calm, surgical. Then she said softly, Good. Let him dig his own grave deeper. Her tone didn't rise, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Michael froze for half a second, recognizing the shift, that razor-thin line where her patience transformed into precision. Elena, he began carefully, if he authorizes anything with those credentials, the paper trail could get messy. That's the point, she replied, eyes fixed on the screen. Messy hands leave fingerprints. A micro cliffhanger pulsed through the scene. Viewers could feel she wasn't panicking, she was positioning. The low-burn tension made every word feel like strategy disguised as stillness. She opened a blank document titled, The Correction Plan. For a moment, her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Then she began, typing methodically, her eyes distant, lost in the rhythmic sound of keystrokes that built her vengeance one word at a time. Flashback. Arthur Lynn again, seated by the window of his estate years ago. His health had been failing, but his mind had never been sharper. You don't fight greed with anger, Elena. You fight it with design. Every fool builds a trap for others. The wise woman designs one where they trap themselves. The memory folded back into the present. Elena's gaze hardened as she typed a line across the top of the document. Correction begins when deception ends. Michael's voice pulled her back. What's the next move? She looked directly into the camera. I want every Hailtech financial transaction mirrored. If Jason so much as sneezes into an account, I want a copy. Michael nodded. Understood. Her expression softened briefly, not with warmth, but focus. And Michael, keep this between us, even if the world burns. He gave a Bren, small, grim smile. Wouldn't be the first time you rebuilt from ashes. The call ended. The apartment returned to silence, but it was no longer heavy, it pulsed, alive with purpose. Elena leaned back, stretching her fingers. The faint hum of her laptop filled the air like a secret heartbeat. On the desk beside it lay a small photograph, her and Jason on their wedding day, laughing, his arms around her waist. She stared at it for a long moment, then quietly turned it face down. As she resumed typing, her reflection on the dark screen aligned with the Aurelia logo. The audience now fully senses she's not just a wronged wife. She's something far greater, but the scale of her power remains veiled. The camera pans slowly from the screen to the window, where the same city skyline Jason flaunted hours ago shimmered, every tower built with her money, her name, her silence. Her voice whispered, half promise, half prophecy. He took 20 million from me. Let's see. What happens when I take everything he stands on? The cursor blinked once, twice, then froze on the final words of her plan. Phase 1. Observation. Phase 2. Correction. Phase 3. Revelation. Lightning flickered outside. The music swelled, not loud but slow, deliberate. The storm had begun. The scene opens not in the present, but in the dim light of a hospital room 8 years earlier. The kind of silence that carries weight, like the pause before an orchestra begins. Monitors beep softly, the scent of antiseptic lingers, and the rain taps gently against the window. Arthur Lynn, once the most enigmatic investor in the private sector, now lies frail, his hand trembling against crisp sheets. Elena, 27 then, sits beside him, clutching a worn notebook filled with sketches and project notes. The exhaustion in her face isn't just from caring for him, it's from the weight of the empire she'd unknowingly built at his side. Arthur's voice is rough, like gravel. You always thought you were building my legacy, didn't you? Elena shakes her head quickly. I built what you envisioned. I just followed your guidance. He smiles faintly, the kind of smile that knows more than it says. No, Elena. I followed you. He gestures weakly to the drawer by his bedside. Open it. She hesitates, then does. Inside lies a sealed black folder, its surface embossed with the Aurelia emblem, the phoenix rising from gold ash. The sight of it makes her chest tighten. Arthur takes a shallow breath. You built Aurelia for me. Now it's yours. Everything, the holdings, the patents, the shell companies, they belong to you. But the world can't know until you decide it's time. Tears pool in her eyes. Arthur, I can't, I'm not. He raises a frail hand, stopping her. You are. You always were. I'm naming you majority shareholder and CEO in trust. Hidden until you sign the release. It's protection for you and for what's coming. The heart monitor clicks steadily as he speaks, each word a drop of time running out. Arthur looks at her, his eyes piercing even in weakness. Power whispers, Elena. The day you speak, make sure it's final. She lowers her head, trembling. Why me? He smiles, softer now. Because you build for people, not applause. The ones who crave attention always destroy what they touch. The camera lingers on his hand as he places the folder into hers, a transfer of destiny, not just documents. Elena stepping out of the hospital later that night. The city glows below her, indifferent and alive. The folder rests against her chest. She looks up at the skyline, where lights blink like constellations of human ambition, and whispers to herself, then I'll build quietly. Elena. Signing anonymous ownership transfers through encrypted systems. Small companies launching under shell names, Green Arc Tech, Noventus Labs, Aurelia Dynamics, employees smiling in factories, developers pitching ideas, community centers opening, each funded quietly through Aurelia subsidiaries. Her life became the paradox Arthur designed, the invisible billionaire. In one clip, Jason stands behind her, peering at a spreadsheet she quickly closes. What's all that? He asks casually. Just contracts, she answers, smiling faintly. He laughs, patting her shoulder. One day you'll thank me when I make real money. The irony hangs sharp. He never knew he'd been standing beside a woman who controlled a multi-billion-dollar empire. Back to present. Elena stares at the same black folder now resting on her desk, the Aurelia emblem faintly illuminated by lamplight. Arthur's words echo in her mind like a heartbeat. The day you speak, make sure it's final. Her eyes lift toward the skyline visible through her apartment window, the same towers Jason and Victoria now parade beneath. She whispers, soon, Arthur. The wind stirs the papers beside her, flipping one page open. The correction plan, Phase 1 half complete. Her fingers trace the Aurelia logo. The phoenix gleams under her touch, rebirth, waiting for ignition. The frame tightens on her face, calm, resolute, dangerous. The girl from the hospital has vanished. The CEO is finally awake. The ballroom shimmered in golden glass, sunlight filtering through crystal chandeliers as cameras flashed in rhythmic bursts. Reporters moved like a tide of hungry faces, their lenses feeding on vanity and scandal. At the center of it all, Jason Reed basked in his favorite light attention. The charity brunch was meant to raise funds for small business innovation grants, yet the irony was painful. Hale Tech banners hung behind him, flanked by Victoria Hale's immaculate smile, and a table filled with industry executives pretending to care about the less fortunate. Jason lifted his champagne flute. To success, he declared, voice carrying, across the marble hall, and to knowing when to leave failure behind. Laughter rippled through the room. A reporter leaned in, eager for more. Mr. Reed, any comment on your ex-wife's recent bankruptcy filing? Jason smirked. Ah, Elena. She's sentimental, brilliant cook, terrible investor. Some people should have stayed in the kitchen. Business isn't for everyone. The laughter this time was louder, crueler. Even Victoria chuckled softly. though her eyes darted sideways, gauging public reaction. Jason noticed and doubled down. "But don't pity her," he added with a grin. "She'll land on her feet, maybe running another little art boutique somewhere." The crowd roared. Camera bulbs popped like tiny explosions. And in the far back of the room, nearly invisible, in a simple black dress and no jewelry, Elena watched. Her expression didn't move, not once, but the silence around her thickened. Her fingers brushed the silver pendant Arthur had given her years ago, the one shaped like a phoenix. Her eyes glimmered once in the light, then dimmed back to composure. Flashback, Jason's voice years ago, echoing in memory. "You're too serious, Elena. The world doesn't reward people who build quietly." She'd smiled then, cutting vegetables at the counter. "Maybe not today," she'd said softly, "but it remembers who burned it down." The flashback dissolved. Jason was still laughing on stage, oblivious to the woman he'd just reignited. Hours later, the echo of applause faded into the night. Elena stepped out of the hotel lobby, heels clicking against marble, the city lights painting her silhouette in muted silver. Her phone buzzed once in her clutch, an encrypted notification. She stopped beneath a fountain, the sound masking her voice as she answered. Michael Grant's face appeared on the screen, breathless but composed. "Ma'am, it's official. The Hale Tech board approved the merger. Once Jason signs, he'll have executive access to Aurelia's dormant assets." The camera caught Elena's slow exhale, calm and dangerous. The fountain light shimmered over her face, catching the faintest curve of a smile. "Then I'll let him sign his downfall." Her tone was barely above a whisper, but it carried the kind of quiet power that made the world tilt. Michael hesitated. "You're sure you want to let it go through?" "Yes," she said. "The ink that seals his greed will open my door to justice." As the call ended, she turned toward the busy street. Behind her, a billboard flickered with Jason and Victoria's photo, "The future of innovation, the Hale Tech Aurelia merger." Elena watched the slogan dissolve into static, then vanish entirely as the billboard glitched her doing. A micro cliffhanger moment, the audience senses something larger at play. She whispered, almost to the wind, "You wanted a merger, Jason. You'll get one with consequences." The sound of city traffic rose, merging with soft orchestral strings as she walked away, the camera holding on the pendant at her neck, the phoenix gleaming under neon. Every humiliation he gave her had just become her blueprint for revenge. The rhythm of the city moved like a heartbeat, steady, alive, unaware of the quiet storm brewing beneath its surface. In a sleek, glass-walled office high above the skyline, Elena sat across from Mr. Harris, the seasoned, ethical lawyer who had once represented her late mentor, Arthur Lynn. The man's presence was calm authority itself, silver hair, sharp glasses, and eyes that seemed to measure the weight of every decision before it was spoken. Stacks of documents lay open on the table, legal blueprints of an empire reborn. Elena leaned forward, her pen tapping once against the page. "Clause 17, Mr. Harris said, his voice even. "Are you certain you want this included? It could invalidate every merger without direct consent." "That's the idea," she replied softly, her tone unflinching. He adjusted his glasses, reading aloud. "Any merger signed without the CEO's direct fingerprint authorization is void and triggers automatic federal investigation under Aurelia's compliance bylaws." Elena nodded once. "If they think I'm just the designer behind a brand, let them find out the hard way who the architect really is." Mr. Harris studied her for a moment, admiration faintly softening his usual stoicism. "Arthur would be proud," he said. A flicker of emotion crossed her eyes, not sadness, not pride, but the deep, quiet ache of remembrance. "He told me to wait until the world built its own noose," she murmured. "Jason just handed me the rope." A quiet night in a dim study. Elena, in a tailored black blazer, sits before multiple monitors as numbers roll across screens. Anonymous brokers execute trades, offshore accounts reroute funds, a series of small acquisitions begin under shell identities, Noventus Group, Arcadia Partners, Valacrest Holdings. An unseen hand slides a document across a mahogany desk. A bank seal stamps it, "Transaction approved, Hale Tech Holdings, 47% share acquired." Elena signs with calm precision. A single ring on her hand, the same one she wore at her wedding, glints under the lamplight. Michael Grant, watching nearby, murmurs, "You're not just buying stock, ma'am. You're buying the foundation under their feet." Elena's response is measured. "No, Michael. I'm reclaiming what they tried to stand on." Late evening, the wind moves softly through the cypress trees, carrying the faint hum of distant traffic. Elena stands before a marble headstone engraved with elegant simplicity, "Arthur Lynn, the builder of quiet empires." She kneels slowly, setting a single black pen beside the tombstone, the same kind Arthur once used to sign her ownership papers. Her reflection shimmers faintly against the polished stone. "You told me to speak when it's final," she says, her voice breaking into a whisper carried by the wind. "Tomorrow I will." For a moment, her composure cracks the vulnerability she hides from the world, flashes across her face like a lightning shadow. Then it's gone. The Aurelia folder sits open on the table beside the correction plan. She slides a new document beneath it. Merger signature authentication, ready for deployment. Outside, the skyline glows. Hailtech's headquarters shines brightest, unaware that half of its light already belongs to her. The camera lingers on the black pen resting atop Arthur's folder, a symbol of everything she's built in silence and everything she's about to reveal. Elena's whisper threads through the silence like prophecy. Power whispers, until it decides to roar. The scene ends on her reflection, half shadow, half flame, the silent storm poised to strike. Grand ballroom pulsed with electric excitement, chandeliers blazing, cameras clicking in staccato bursts, champagne flutes clinking like the prelude to history. The golden banners stretching across the marble pillars read in bold, triumphant lettering, "A.U. Aurelia, Hailtech Unification Gala." Photographers shouted, flashes exploding as Victoria Hale glided down the aisle in a liquid silver gown, her diamond necklace catching every light in the room. She looked every bit the empress of her empire, polished, untouchable, basking in the narrative she'd written for herself. Beside her, Jason Reed beamed with the swagger of a man who believed he'd won everything. "Smile, Jason," one reporter called. "The genius who brought two giants together?" Jason grinned, gripping the pen like a scepter. "Some of us are born to make history," he declared, leaning toward Victoria, "and some just help decorate it." Victoria laughed softly, resting her manicured hand on his arm. "Let's sign, darling. It's time the world saw what real power looks like." At the long mahogany signing table, the Hailtech executives assembled in a gleaming line, murmuring, calculating, rehearsing sound bites in their heads. Behind them, investors whispered numbers that glittered with greed. 20 billion projected valuation, record-breaking expansion, complete market dominance. Then the MC's voice echoed through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, today marks a union that will redefine innovation across the globe. Please welcome Hailtech's Vice President, Mr. Jason Reed, an interim co-signatory for Aurelia Holdings." Applause thundered. Jason preened beneath the lights, his reflection towering in the mirrored wall behind him, his favorite view. The MC gestured to the document, gold-rimmed and waiting. "Mr. Reed, if you would." Jason leaned forward, signing with a dramatic flourish, the cameras flashing in perfect rhythm. He turned to the crowd, raising the pen like a sword. "Done. The future is officially ours." The audience erupted again. Victoria kissed his cheek for the cameras, perfectly timed. But before she could say a word, the ballroom doors swung open. Every head turned. A courier stepped in, unassuming in a black uniform, holding a sealed white envelope embossed with Aurelia's gold phoenix crest. He walked steadily toward the stage, ignoring the stares. The MC faltered. Sir, can we help you?" The courier bowed slightly. "Delivery, marked for CEOE, C, only." Jason blinked, irritation flickering. "That's for the board," he said briskly, extending a hand. "I'll take it." But the courier didn't move. "Apologies, sir. My orders are clear. Only Elena Carter Lynn, alias E.C., can open this." For 2 seconds, the world seemed to stop. The hum of conversation vanished. Then, like a wave, confusion rippled through the room. "E.C.?" a reporter murmured. "Who's that?" Victoria frowned, glancing at Jason. "Is that one of your team?" Jason's smile wavered. "Some clerical nonsense. Probably a system." Before he could finish, The courier turned sharply, placing the envelope at the center of the signing table, directly atop the signed merger contract. The gold phoenix gleamed under the chandelier. Security moved closer, their earpieces crackling. "Orders verified," one guard said into his mic. "Authorization restricted to Elena Carter Lynn only." The murmuring grew louder, restless, a sound like rising wind. Reporters lifted cameras again, sensing blood. "Wait," one whispered. "Did he say Elena Carter Lynn?" Jason's fingers tightened on the table edge. "No," he muttered, trying to laugh. "Impossible. She's—" But the courier's gaze stayed fixed, professional. "Sir, authorization protocols were preloaded into Aurelia's system this morning. Attempting to open it without identity verification will trigger a compliance breach alert." The crowd gasped. Victoria's smile faltered. Jason's hand slipped slightly from the pen. Across the hall, unnoticed at first, a woman in a black suit and minimal jewelry began walking toward the stage, poised, measured, calm. Each step echoed against marble, drawing every camera lens in her direction. The courier looked up. "Ah," he said simply. "She's here." Jason turned and froze. The camera zoomed in on Elena's face as she stopped just beneath the stage lights, her gaze steady, her silence sharper than any weapon. Every investor, every reporter, every rival now held their breath, the tension a wire stretched to breaking. The woman he mocked, the wife he discarded, the failure he laughed at, had just been named the CEO of the empire he thought he owned, and he was standing on her stage. For a long moment, the ballroom was utterly still, the kind of silence that hums before a lightning strike. The courier stepped back. All eyes were fixed on the woman standing beneath the chandelier, her black suit glinting faintly under the golden light. Elena moved forward slowly, every step deliberate, her heels echoing across the marble like a countdown. Cameras flashed, security stiffened. Jason's confident smirk faltered into confusion. The MC fumbled, "Ladies and gentlemen, may I present?" But Elena didn't need an introduction. She reached the table, fingers resting on the sealed envelope with the Aurelia Phoenix crest. Her voice was low but resonant, calm, measured, unshakably certain. "This envelope," she said, "is addressed to me." A ripple of murmurs cut through the crowd. Jason laughed nervously, looking to the reporters. "Oh, this is ridiculous. Elena, what are you doing here?" Ignoring him, she broke the wax seal and unfolded the papers. The sound of crisp parchment tearing open was loud enough to silence the whispers. Her eyes scanned the pages. Then she lifted them, and one by one, the massive LED screens behind the stage flickered to life. Aurelia Holdings official notice CEO. Elena Carter Lynn gasps shot through the hall like sparks. Jason blinked, frozen. No, this is a trick." Elena's voice cut clean through his panic. "No, Jason. This is the truth you never cared to ask about." She turned the documents toward the crowd, the Aurelia seal glowing on every page, the merger clauses annotated with red corrections, and beneath them, Jason's own forged signatures digitally time-stamped. A collective gasp spread. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. "You see," she continued, her tone even, "this merger you just signed," she held up the contract, "is void. The bylaws were amended last week. No merger is valid without my fingerprint authorization." She turned her gaze to Victoria, whose once perfect posture had wilted. "And you, Miss Hale," Elena said softly, "approved in Mao. Illegal transaction without due diligence. As CEO, I'm triggering an internal investigation effective immediately." The room seemed to tilt. Reporters surged forward, microphones raised. "Elena," Jason sputtered, voice cracking. You can't, you're lying." She cut him off with a small motion to security. Two guards in black suits stepped forward, placing themselves between her and Jason. "I'm not lying," she said. "You emptied my account to marry your boss." Her tone sharpened, quiet but cutting through the noise like glass. "You didn't know I owned hers." The words detonated in the air, slow, echoing, irreversible. Victoria's face went pale. Jason's body jerked as if he'd been struck. "No," he breathed. "No, you can't." Elena stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "You forged my authorization to gain access to Aurelia's accounts. That's embezzlement." She nodded toward the big screen, where his Falsified digital signature glowed red. You used insider data to manipulate assets. That's fraud. And you leaked merger details before public filing. That's a federal violation. The last word landed like a gavel. Jason stumbled back, muttering, "This isn't happening." Elena's voice remained calm, almost pitying. "It is. You always said business wasn't for everyone." She tilted her head slightly, a faint, restrained smile touching her lips. "I'd say you married the wrong CEO." Security stepped closer, as murmurs turned to frantic chatter. Victoria's hand trembled as she reached for Jason's arm, but he shook her off, panic widening his eyes. The MC stammered something about a recess, but the press had already surged forward, their flashes blinding, their voices overlapping. "Elena, are you confirming you're the majority owner of both companies? Was this merger a setup? What happens to Hail Tech now?" Elena's composure didn't waver. She met every camera lens with quiet strength. "What happens now?" she said softly. "Correction." She turned to the guards. "Escort Mr. Reed and Miss Hale to legal holding. They'll have time to explain their signatures." The crowd erupted, journalists shouting, investors panicking, flashes firing like a storm. Elena stood at the center, serene amid the chaos. Behind her, the Aurelia logo shimmered, a phoenix rising from golden flames. The woman once humiliated now ruled the room. Her final glance at Jason wasn't filled with hate, only with the calm finality of truth. "Power whispers," she murmured, almost to herself, "until it decides to roar." The lights dimmed slowly on her face, composed, radiant, and utterly untouchable. The chaos in the ballroom had evolved into a storm. Flashes strobed across the marble floor like lightning bolts. Reporters shouted questions over one another. Investors barked into their phones, and the air that once smelled of champagne now reeked of panic. Jason Reed, the man who once thought attention was oxygen, now flinched beneath it. Security officers flanked him on both sides, their grip firm but controlled. The cameras followed as he stumbled toward the exit, his once proud stride broken into something smaller, almost pitiful. "Jason! Jason!" a reporter yelled. "Do you deny the forgery charges?" He didn't answer, couldn't. His jaw locked. Sweat glistened against his temples. The laughter that had once echoed so easily from him now curdled into silence. Beside the stage, Victoria Hale stood frozen, her silver gown catching the light like a cracked mirror. Her PR director whispered frantically, "The investors are demanding immediate refunds. We've lost 40% in an hour." Victoria turned on him, her composure shattering. "Tell them to wait, I can fix this." But another voice from the board table cut her off coldly. "You can't fix what was never yours to sell." She turned toward the sound. It was Mr. Harris, standing beside Elena now, documents in hand. The quiet lawyer who had spent decades guarding Arthur Lynn's empire looked every bit the executioner of legality. The hush returned when Elena Carter Lynn stepped forward. She approached the podium, her steps unhurried, posture straight, the embodiment of grace reclaimed. The Aurelia logo pulsed behind her like a living fire. For a moment she scanned the crowd, the same crowd that had once laughed at her downfall, and her gaze was neither bitter nor cruel. It was calm, complete. She leaned into the microphone, voice low but resonant, the kind that made even chaos listen. "When I was younger," she began, "a man I respected told me something I never forgot. Real wealth isn't loud. It builds." Her eyes flicked briefly toward Jason, who was being led through the side doors, his wrists loosely bound. "And when betrayal enters a place of creation, it doesn't destroy it. It only exposes what was already rotting." Every word landed like poetry carved in steel. Reporters fell silent. Cameras zoomed closer. Investors, the same ones who'd once doubted her, now leaned forward in reverent disbelief. "This company," she continued, gesturing to the banners that once bore Hail Tech's insignia, "was built on integrity, innovation, and quiet resilience. That hasn't changed. It only lost its way when arrogance mistook volume for vision." Her tone carried no venom. It was not revenge. It was correction. A slow applause began from the back of the hall, hesitant, then growing, until the entire room echoed with it. Even some former Hail Tech employees joined, their expressions a mixture of awe and relief. Elena's lips curved faintly, but her eyes glistened. She wasn't smiling out of triumph, it was release. "Arthur Lynn once told me, she said softly. That power whispers until it decides to roar. Today, it whispered long enough. She stepped away from the podium, and as the applause thundered, the camera caught her passing by Victoria, now slumped in a chair, mascara streaked, clutching a shattered image of her former empire. Jason, glimpsed one last time through the glass doors, looked back over his shoulder, not at Victoria, not at the reporters, but at Elena. The woman he'd mocked as a failure now stood where he could never return. The audience could feel it, poetic justice complete. As the lights dimmed and the cameras faded, Elena looked toward the empty front row where once she'd sat as a silent wife and whispered under her breath, "It's over, Arthur. The correction is complete." The faint sound of clapping continued long after she left the stage. The world woke up to her story. Screens across news networks blazed with headlines that rippled through every corridor of power. Secret billionaire CEO exposes husband's $20 million theft hail attack. Board resigns. The woman behind Aurelia, Elena Carter-Lynn, the invisible architect of empires. Betrayal, billions, and the quietest revenge in corporate history. Clips from the gala replayed in slow motion. Elena standing firm beneath the golden lights, Jason's face draining of confidence, Victoria's trembling silence. The moment the Aurelia logo ignited behind its true owner. The footage was everywhere. The woman who had once been mocked for staying in the kitchen had rewritten the recipe for poetic justice. Jason Reed, sitting in the half-lit corner of a rundown motel. The peeling wallpaper, the buzzing neon sign outside, and the stale odor of old smoke were a brutal contrast to the penthouse he'd once bragged about. His laptop screen glowed weakly before him, illuminating the digital wreckage of his former life-freezing bank accounts, terminated contracts, legal summons piling in his inbox. He scrolled numbly through the headlines. Hailtech. Merger declared, fraudulent investigation ongoing. Jason Reed, named in embezzlement and forgery inquiry. His reflection stared back at him from the black screen. Hollow eyes, stubble on his chin, the expensive watch still clinging to his wrist like a cruel reminder of what he'd lost. His hand trembled as he reached for his phone. After a long, shuddering breath, he dialed her number. The tone rang once, twice, then clicked. Elena. Her name came out barely above a whisper, heavy with desperation. "Please, don't hang up. I just need to talk." For a moment there was silence, the kind that stretches eternity thin. Then her calm, composed voice answered. "I was wondering when you'd call." Jason swallowed hard. "You can't just erase me like this." His voice cracked, raw and pleading. "You can't. I made mistakes, but you loved me once. Doesn't that count for something?" Her voice didn't rise. It didn't tremble. It was softer than he remembered, almost kind, but cold beneath the surface. "I didn't erase you, Jason," she said. "You did that yourself the day you stole from the one person who built your dreams." He blinked, tears breaking loose, his voice dissolving into broken laughter. "You always were better with words." On her end, the silence carried meaning, not cruelty, not victory, just quiet truth. "I wish you peace," she said simply. Then the line clicked. Jason stared at the phone, the empty dial tone humming through the room. For a moment he just sat there, the echo of her voice looping in his mind, the one truth he couldn't twist, couldn't spin, couldn't charm. The man who thought he'd traded up for power now sat surrounded by receipts of his own downfall. Elena standing by her office window, the city skyline stretching before her, vast, brilliant, alive. The sun glinted off the Aurelia Tower's gold emblem. She placed her phone down gently beside a framed photograph. Arthur Lynn and her at Aurelia's groundbreaking ceremony, both smiling. Her voice was a whisper, half prayer, half vow. Power doesn't destroy, it remembers. The camera pulled back slowly, her figure outlined against the rising dawn, the empire reborn in silence. Morning sunlight streamed through the Aurelia Tower's glass facade, turning the boardroom into a cathedral of light. The tension of headlines and betrayals had faded, replaced now with quiet purpose. Elena stood before a group of journalists and partners, her composure serene yet resolute. Behind her, a banner read, "The Lynn Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs Seed Fund, $20 million. Michael, standing beside her, whispered, "$20 million, the exact amount he stole." Elena smiled faintly. "He thought money was power." she said, eyes gleaming with calm conviction. I'll turn his greed into opportunity. Gasps rippled through the room, not from scandal, but reverence. The same number that once symbolized theft, betrayal, and humiliation now pulsed with a new life, redemption through creation. She stepped to the podium. This foundation isn't about revenge, she said softly. It's about rebuilding the kind of world that doesn't force women to beg for belief. Images flashed on the projector, single mothers baking from home, young girls sketching business ideas in notebooks, widows rebuilding shops from ashes. Her tone was steady, but her eyes shimmered every sentence of vow stitched with purpose. Every grant we give will remind the world that failure isn't final, that strength, once dismissed, can change entire economies. Michael glanced at her, his voice low, admiring. Arthur would be proud. Elena turned toward the window where sunlight cut across the skyline like a promise. He taught me that legacies aren't measured by headlines, but by who stands taller because of you. Outside, the Aurelia Tower reflected her reflection, no longer hidden, no longer shadowed by betrayal. The Lynn Foundation's first public event was alive with warmth, laughter, press flashes, the soft hum of promise. Entrepreneurs shared stories of survival and triumph, their faces glowing under golden lights. Elena stood near the stage, elegant in white, speaking gently with a group of young founders when the murmurs began. A figure had appeared at the entrance. Jason. Thinner, pale, suit hanging loose like borrowed skin. He hesitated under the glow of cameras, then stumbled forward until he was at her feet, the same woman he once mocked before the world. The crowd parted in stunned silence. Elena, his voice cracked, broken by guilt and exhaustion. Please, forgive me. I lost everything. The cameras clicked in bursts, every flash freezing his fall from arrogance to ashes. Elena looked down at him for a long moment, not with anger, not even pity, but something quieter. She stepped closer, her tone calm, but cutting through the air like truth itself. So did I once, she said softly, but I rebuilt without stealing. That's the difference. The weight of her words lingered, not vengeance, but balance. Justice that needed no spectacle. Security approached, waiting for her nod. She gave it gently. Jason was lifted to his feet and escorted away, his plea swallowed by the sound of applause returning to the room. Elena turned back to the stage, her expression serene. Behind her, the foundation's banner read, Rebuild, Redefine, Rise. For a brief moment, she looked toward the audience and smiled, not for victory, but for peace. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing the serene expanse of Aurelia's top floor. Morning light washed across the glass walls, casting gold over the city that once doubted her. The hum of quiet success filled the air, purposeful, steady, alive. Elena stepped into her office, her presence calm but commanding, every movement threaded with quiet grace. On her desk, fresh reports were stacked neatly beside a vase of white orchids, Arthur's favorite. Michael entered with a file in hand, his tone composed but tinged with satisfaction. Ma'am, he said, Victoria Hale just filed for bankruptcy, complete liquidation within 30 days. Elena paused by the window, eyes tracing the skyline where Haletech's tower once loomed like a shadow. Now it stood half-lit, uncertain, a monument to arrogance undone. A faint smile curved her lips. Then let's acquire Haletech, she said softly. But this time, we'll rebuild it right. Her words weren't revenge, they were redemption, measured and deliberate. Every syllable felt like closure sealed with purpose. Michael nodded, admiration flickering in his gaze. Arthur would have said the same. Elena turned back to her desk. There, placed with care, lay something unexpected, the old pen she'd left at Arthur's grave. A courier's card rested beside it, no sender name, only a handwritten note in neat, familiar script. You spoke, and the world listened. She ran her fingers over the pen, emotion rippling quietly beneath her calm exterior. Outside, the skyline glowed, Aurelia's name reflected in the mirrored glass of every nearby tower, the empire she built, now whispering her legacy in light. The camera slowly pulled back, her silhouette merging with the sunrise. The quiet billionaire, who crushed betrayal with grace and rebuilt the world in her own image. Unaware, the wife he divorced, after her parents died, was about to inherit a $300 million empire, Husband ran to marry her best friend. What she did next crushed them. He didn't just leave her. He had quietly filed for divorce even before the funeral, then handed her the papers only days after she buried her parents, standing in the middle of their quiet home, telling her she was too broken to live with. Then he walked out, not into loneliness, but straight into the arms of her best friend. That evening, Emily Carter could barely hold the pen. 30 years old, eyes red from crying, she stared at the documents shaking in her hands. Her husband, Daniel, stood across from her, expression cold and impatient as if he were the victim. "I can't do this anymore," he said. "Your grief, your family, all of it. I need peace. Peace." Behind him, her best friend Lauren Summers, bold, stylish, always too comfortable in Emily's space, waited by the door, pretending to be supportive, hiding the truth they thought Emily would never discover. Daniel believed he was trading a burdensome wife for an easier life, a happier woman, a cleaner start. He thought Emily was now alone, no parents, no real money, no power, just a broken heart and an empty house. What he didn't know was this: the parents he dismissed as old-fashioned had quietly built an empire, and the daughter he called too emotional was about to inherit all of it. While Daniel was busy emptying their joint account and rushing into a new wedding with Lauren, Emily sat in a law office, listening as her parents' lawyer calmly explained, "Your family's estate is valued at nearly $300 million, and it's all in your name. This is not just a story about a man who left and a friend who betrayed. It's about what happens when the woman they abandoned decides not to stay broken, but to act." Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Emily's story disappear the way they hoped it would. When you click that button, you stand with every quiet soul who chose dignity over despair. Please subscribe now, and in the comments, share where you're watching from. The moment the scene opens, Emily Carter is already moving fast, almost running as she reaches for a fragile glass vase sliding toward the edge of her hallway table. Her heart races as she catches it at the last second, fingers trembling around the cool glass. The tiny disaster she just avoided echoes too loud in the quiet house. When the vase settles, the truth sits with it. Emily is always the one saving things before they fall apart. Emily is 30 years old, gentle-looking but strong in quiet ways. She has soft eyes that trust too easily, and a face that tries to hide how tired she often feels. She grew up in a close, disciplined family, raised by parents who believed in grace, kindness, responsibility. Her parents, Richard and Margaret Carter, ran what everyone thought was a small but solid business. The outside world saw a modest company. Emily saw long hours, careful decisions, and a quiet, steady growth she never fully measured. Her parents never flaunted anything. They drove normal cars, lived in a nice but not flashy house, and ate at the same local restaurant every Friday. Emily assumed they were simply comfortable. She never looked deeper into the numbers. She trusted that they managed everything with wisdom, the way they always did. She moves through her own home now, straightening the things Daniel left out of place: shoes in the middle of the hallway, a jacket thrown over a chair, dishes left on the coffee table. Daniel Carter, her husband, 32, is handsome, charming, and used to life bending to his comfort. He works in sales, always talking about closing deals and big clients, dressing like success is already guaranteed. On the outside, he looks like the one in control. Inside their home, Emily quietly knows that isn't true. She reminds him of appointments. She pays the bills on time. She makes sure their joint account doesn't overdraft when he forgets a purchase. She smooths over conflicts he creates when he speaks too sharply to friends or family. She carries the emotional weight that keeps their life from tipping over. Daniel never asks for these things. He doesn't have to. He knows Emily will do them before he even notices they're needed. The garage door beeps twice. Without knocking, Lauren Summers walks inside. Lauren is Emily's childhood best friend, the same age as her, and practically grew up in the Carter house. She enters with easy confidence, typing in the garage code like she lives there. Lauren is bold, outspoken, always dressed like she's heading somewhere important. She gives Emily a bright smile that doesn't ask permission to exist there. "Hey, Em," Lauren calls, dropping her purse on the counter. Emily smiles warmly. "Good morning, Lauren." To Emily, this is normal. Lauren has always come and gone freely. But that tiny moment walking in without knocking, Dropping her things on the counter like it belongs to her shows how much space Lauren takes up in Emily's world. More space than a friend should. And Emily, because of her kind nature, never sees that imbalance. As Lauren walks toward the kitchen, Emily's mind flashes back to another moment. College finals week. Books scattered all over Lauren's tiny dorm room. Emily sits cross-legged on the floor, patiently helping Lauren understand concepts she'd already mastered days ago. Lauren groans and flops back dramatically. "You're a machine, Em," she laughs. "You don't even try and still get it." Emily just smiles and keeps explaining. Then Daniel's name pops up on Emily's phone. Back then, he was the new boyfriend with the charming smile and big promises. Emily remembers showing Lauren the engagement ring a year later, her cheeks flushed with joy. Lauren smiled big, loud, playful, but her eyes lingered on the ring with something else underneath. A tightness. A flicker of something that wasn't happiness. Emily didn't notice it then, but now, the memory floats up, like a tiny warning she never understood. Another memory folds in, softer, older. The night before Emily's wedding, her mother stands in her childhood bedroom, holding a small velvet box. The house smells like flowers and baking and fresh perfume. Margaret's eyes are warm but serious. "We're not giving you the real things yet," her mother says gently, brushing a strand of hair behind Emily's ear. "That will come when you're older. But here's a reminder that our family built more than memories." Inside the box is a delicate necklace with the family crest. Simple, subtle. Not flashy enough to scream wealth, but personal enough to mean something. Emily had smiled, thinking it was just sentimental. She never realized her mother was hinting at something much bigger. Back in the present, Emily touches that necklace at her throat, a habit she doesn't even notice anymore. She believes loyalty is who she is. She gives more than she takes. It makes her feel grounded, purposeful. She trusts Daniel. She trusts Lauren. She trusts because it never really crossed her mind that the people closest to her could want something other than her love. The doorbell rings suddenly, sharp and unexpected. At the same exact moment, her phone vibrates in her hand. She looks at the screen. Her father's name flashes. Her father almost never calls this early. He usually texts first or waits until late afternoon when she's off work. The phone keeps vibrating. The doorbell rings again. An uneasy stillness settles over the house. Emily lifts the phone to her ear. Before she can say a word, the screen freezes on her shocked face. Everything I thought was stable, was about to break. And somewhere in the back of her mind, that velvet box memory flickers again, quiet, soft, and heavier than she ever realized. The moment Emily answers the phone, the scene explodes into intensity. There's chaos on the other end. A loud crash, rushed footsteps, overlapping voices, the distant beep of hospital machines. Her father's name is on the screen, but the voice that finally speaks isn't his. "Hello? Dad?" Emily's voice shakes. "Dad?" A stranger answers, breathless and steady at the same time. "Ma'am, this is Dr. Harris from Memorial General. Are you Emily Carter?" Emily's stomach drops. "Yes." "What's wrong? What happened? Are my parents okay?" There is a pause. Not because the doctor doesn't know what to say, but because he knows exactly what it will do to her. "I'm so sorry," he says quietly. "Your parents were in a serious accident early this morning. We did everything we could. They didn't make it." The world stops. The living room around her, the soft morning light, the neat furniture she just straightened. The faint smell of coffee turns distant and unreal. The sound leaves the room. The only thing she hears is his last sentence repeating in her head. "They didn't make it. They didn't make it. They didn't." Her knees buckle. The phone slips from her fingers and hits the floor. A sound rips out of Emily's chest, raw, broken, almost animal. A sound she has never made before and never imagined she could. Lauren rushes in from the kitchen, startled by the noise. Daniel appears from the hallway, half dressed for work, his expression shifting from annoyance to confusion to alarm. "Emily?" Daniel asks. "What's going on?" Emily can't answer. She folds in on herself, shaking on the floor, hands pressed over her mouth as if she could hold the grief inside. Lauren drops down beside her, grabbing her shoulders. "Em, talk to me. What happened?" The doctor's voice, still faintly audible on the fallen phone, fills the silence. "Miss Carter? Are you still there?" "I'm so sorry." Lauren reaches for the phone with trembling fingers and lifts it to her ear, listening just long enough to understand. Her face pales. Her parents, Lauren whispers to Daniel. They're gone. The intensity gradually softens into a heavy, suffocating stillness. Time blurs over the next few days. Emily sits in a stiff chair at the hospital, signing release forms she barely reads. She meets with a funeral director who speaks gently about caskets and flowers while she stares at his moving lips, hearing nothing. She stands in her parents' house, now strangely quiet, as relatives move in and out carrying dishes, tissues, and condolences. Daniel is there, but from a distance. He stands with his arms crossed, talking more about the time he's missing from work than the lives that were lost. Emotional comfort was never his. Strength. He offers her a stiff shoulder, a pat on the back, glances at his phone when he thinks she isn't looking. Lauren is closer. She sits beside her, holds her when she cries, brings her coffee she barely drinks. She whispers, "I'm here. I won't leave you," over and over. But sometimes, when Emily's sobs quiet and she stares at the floor, the camera lingers on Lauren's face. On the way, her eyes shift. On the flicker of guilt or calculation, she quickly masks. Grief pulls Emily into memories. 9-year-old Emily sits on a tall chair in her father's office, her feet not touching the floor. Her father slides charts across the desk, simple numbers, small graphs. "This is how our business works," he says kindly. "We buy smart, we save, we think long-term." He taps a desk drawer and locks it with a small key. "This," he adds, "stays closed until you're ready. Your mother and I wrote something important for your future." Young Emily doesn't ask what it is. She just nods, trusting that whatever her parents decide is right. A family event in their backyard. Her mother pulls her aside, away from the noise. The evening light softens her face. "This family built something worth protecting," her mother says. "Not just money, reputation, trust, a name. One day, it will all be yours to look after." Emily remembered laughing gently, brushing it off. She never imagined what all truly meant. Back in the present, those memories now press on her, heavier than the grief itself. In the quiet of her bedroom, after arranging the final details of the funeral, Emily curls on the bed, clutching the necklace with the family crest. Tears slip down her cheeks silently this time. There are no more screams left, only a dull ache and the weight of everything she has lost. Daniel stands by the doorway, watching. He doesn't come closer. "I'm sorry," he says softly, as if the words cost him something. "I don't know what else to decree. Say." Emily barely hears him. Lauren sits near the foot of the bed, rubbing Emily's ankle through the blanket. "You still have us," she whispers. Emily's voice is faint. "I don't know what I'd do without you both." Lauren's jaw tightens for just a second, a tiny revealing crack. The scene quiets. Later that night, after the hospital's final message with details about the accident and paperwork, Emily's phone buzzes again. This time, the preview shows a different sender, a professional-looking email address, followed by a short line. "Miss Carter, it's urgent we speak about your parents' estate." At the bottom of the preview, a small attachment icon appears, a document waiting, unopened, for the moment she can finally face it. It's 3 nights after the funeral. Emily jerks awake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, because she hears something slam downstairs. A door, then hurried footsteps. For a split second, her half-asleep mind thinks it might be her father coming home late like he sometimes did after long meetings. Then reality hits her like cold water. Her parents are gone. She rushes to the top of the stairs, breath quick and shallow. From the darkness below, she hears Daniel's voice, low, sharp, not meant for her. She stays in the shadow of the hallway, hidden from view. Daniel stands in the living room, illuminated by the glow of his phone screen. Usually, he moves through life with easy confidence. Right now, his shoulders are tight, his jaw clenched. He paces in a small circle, one hand pressed to his forehead. "I told you not tonight," he hisses into the phone. She barely sleeps. "I can't just disappear whenever you want." A pause. "No, I said I'll text you. Not now." His tone is frustrated, almost scared, not of Emily's feelings, but of being caught. Before Emily can step forward, he ends the call abruptly and shoves the phone into his pocket. His eyes flick toward the stairs as if he feels someone watching. Emily slips back into the bedroom just in time, sliding under the blanket and closing her eyes, forcing her breathing to slow. A moment later, Daniel comes in. The mattress dips as he lies down beside her. A little too careful, a little too quiet. She stares at the ceiling in the dark. Her heart is no longer racing from fear, it's beating fast from something else. Confusion, unease, the first thin crack in the trust she's always given freely. Morning comes, heavy and slow. Emily moves through the house like she's walking underwater. There are condolence flowers on every surface, sympathy cards stacked on the table, a calendar filled with appointments, the lawyer who emailed, the bank, the estate manager, the final meeting with the funeral home. She hears Daniel behind her. He's already dressed, tie crooked, hair still damp from a rushed shower. "I need to head to work," he announces, reaching for his keys. Emily turns, surprised. "Today? You said your boss gave you some time." He avoids her eyes. "It's an emergency, big client. I don't have a choice. That's how sales works, Em. You know that." It's true. This isn't the first time Daniel has had a last-minute meeting. He's always said his job is unpredictable, that important deals don't wait. Still, the timing stings. Her parents have just been buried, her world is shattered, and he is already stepping back into his old rhythm. She swallows hard. "Okay, just don't be too late." "Yeah," he mutters, already halfway to the door. The moment it closes, the house feels even emptier. A few minutes later, the garage keypad beeps twice. Lauren walks in, carrying coffee and a small bag of pastries. She says softly, setting everything down. "You should eat." Emily forces a small smile. "You don't have to keep coming every day." "I know," Lauren answers quickly. "I want to," but her phone buzzes on the counter. Lauren glances at it too fast, as if afraid Emily will see. A new message pops up. D, just the initial. Lauren turns the screen face down and reaches for a mug, overacting her casualness. "Milk or black?" "Milk," Emily whispers. They sit at the dining table. Lauren talks too much about traffic, about a mutual friend's new baby, about a series she's watching. Emily nods, but her mind drifts away. She keeps seeing her father in his office, the locked drawer, the email from the lawyer she hasn't answered yet. Later that afternoon, needing air, Emily steps outside. The neighbor across the street, Mr. Harris, retired and kind, always watering his plants, waves to her gently. "I'm so sorry about your parents, Emily," he says. "They were good people." "Thank you," she replies. Her voice is thin. He hesitates, then adds, "I thought I'd see you last night. I saw Daniel at the diner and assumed you were with him." Emily frowns. "At the diner?" "Yes. Late, around 9. He was sitting in a corner booth with someone. I didn't want to intrude." Emily's throat tightens. I was home." The neighbor looks puzzled. "Oh, must have been a work thing then." He shrugs kindly and goes back to his plants, unaware of the storm he's just started without meaning to. Emily walks back into the house, her hands shaking. The grief and confusion inside her begin to twist together into something new. Suspicion. She hates the way it feels. She doesn't want to think of her husband as someone she has to question. She reminds herself that he's under stress too. That work has always been demanding, but the maybes don't calm her anymore. That evening, she picks up one of Daniel's suit jackets from the back of a chair, intending to hang it properly. As she lays it on the bed, something small slips from the inside pocket and lands on the carpet. A card. Emily bends down and picks it up. It's a hotel key card. The name of a mid-range hotel printed. Clearly on the front, a place she knows is across town. Nowhere near his office, nowhere near any client he's ever mentioned. Not a business card, not a gym pass. Nothing she can explain away. Her heart slams against her ribs. Her fingers tighten around the card. Before she can process what it means, the scene cuts sharply, lingering on her trembling hand. From the kitchen, Daniel's phone buzzes on the counter, and the screen lights up with the same initial that flashed on Lauren's earlier, D. Emily slams her car door and pulls out of the driveway, so fast the tires screech against the pavement. Her hands grip the steering wheel until her knuckles turn white. Her breathing comes in short, uneven bursts. The hotel key card she found an hour ago is still in her pocket, a sharp rectangle pressing against her leg as if it's trying to force the truth into her. On the front of the card, the hotel's name is printed in bold letters. She remembers seeing that same name on a bank. Alert months ago, an unexplained charge Daniel brushed off as a team dinner. She'd believed him. Now the charge and the key line up like two cruel puzzle pieces snapping into place. Please let me be wrong, she whispers to herself. Please, just this once, let me be wrong. The city lights blur past as she drives. The night outside is thick and dark, the streets almost empty. The wind beats against the car like it wants to push her back. But nothing can stop her. When she reaches the hotel parking lot, she parks crooked and doesn't bother fixing it. She steps out before the engine fully shuts off, her legs shaky but moving. The lobby is bright and calm, completely opposite from the storm inside her chest. She walks straight to the elevator, the key card clutched so tightly in her hand she could snap it. As she moves, her mind slows and drifts into painful reflection. Memories come at her in flashes. 16-year-old Emily and Lauren on the Carter porch swing, sharing secrets and plans. Lauren talking about stealing Emily's life for a day because her house was always warmer, always safer. Lauren at the wedding, catching the bouquet, everyone laughing. The camera catching that moment where Lauren's smile seemed a little too wide, her eyes a little too sharp. Daniel on their wedding night, cupping her face and whispering, "I will always choose you, Emily. Always." Those promises feel like lies now, echoing in the elevator as it rises floor by floor. The elevator dings. Emily steps into the hallway. The carpet muffles her footsteps. The air feels heavy. Her eyes scan the door numbers until she finds it. Room 214. The same number printed on the tiny sleeve that came with the key. Her chest tightens. From the other side of the door, she hears faint movement. Then a laugh. A woman's laugh. Light. Familiar. Lauren's. Emily freezes. For a moment, her feet refuse to move. Then Daniel's voice floats through the door, muffled but unmistakable. Her world tilts. Her fingers shake as she lifts the key card. She almost drops it. She leans her forehead against the door for a second, eyes squeezed shut, begging the universe to tell her this is a misunderstanding, a coincidence. But the voices keep drifting through the wood. She swallows hard, pushes the card into the slot, and hears the soft click of the lock. The door opens. What she sees on the other side confirms everything the cracks had been trying to show her. Lauren gasps, color draining from her face. Her hair is messy, her makeup smeared. She's wrapped in one of the hotel's white sheets, clutching it to her chest like it can hide what she's done. Daniel turns, his bare chest exposed, his expression collapsing from relaxed satisfaction to complete panic in a single heartbeat. "Emily?" He breathes. She takes one step inside. Just one. But it feels like stepping off a cliff. Her voice breaks. "You both. After everything I've just been through?" Silence. Emily's eyes move between the two people she trusted most in the world. The friend who promised she'd never leave her. The husband who vowed to choose her always. Memories slam against her. Lauren hugging her at the funeral. Daniel whispering on the phone late at night. The unexplained hotel charges, the neighbor's comment about the diner, the hushed messages marked with a single initial D. All of it rearranges itself into a clear, brutal picture. Daniel takes a step forward, hands raised like he's calming a client. "Emily, listen. This isn't—" "Don't," she whispers. "Don't say it's not what I think. I can see exactly what it is." Her voice is fragile but sharp. Every word slices both of them. Lauren's eyes fill with tears. Whether from shame or fear, it's impossible to tell. "Emily, please. I didn't mean—" Emily cuts her off with a look. She turns, every muscle shaking. She can't stay in that room. The air feels poison. She walks back into the hallway, leaning against the wall for balance. Tears spill down her face, but there's no sobbing now, just quiet, stunned devastation. Cliffhanger. Her phone buzzes in her hand. She looks down, expecting another call from Daniel she'll ignore. Instead, an unknown number flashes on the screen with a message. "Emily, we need to talk. It's urgent about your parents' estate and your legal position." Beneath the text is a small PDF icon labeled Preliminary Instructions, Carter Family Trust. It's 4 days after the funeral. 2 days after the hotel, Emily stands in her living room, still wearing the same sweats she drove to the hotel in. Her body feels hollow. Her eyes are swollen and dry now. She's cried so much that even the tears are tired. Her phone lights up again and again with Daniel's name. Missed calls. Voicemails she doesn't listen to. Texts swinging between apologies and blame. She doesn't answer any of them. Then the front door swings open. Daniel strides in without knocking, jaw tight, papers tucked under his arm. There's no soft apology in his eyes, no real remorse. Only irritation and a strange cold urgency. "Emily, we need to talk," he says sharply. The words land like a punch. She doesn't move. She doesn't welcome him. She just stands there, fingers wrapped around her mother's necklace. He sets the papers on the table. "I can't do this anymore. Your grief, your breakdowns, the constant crying. I need peace. I've already talked to a lawyer." She stares at him, stunned. "My parents just died. You cheated on me while I was burying them." Daniel flinches, but instead of shame, something defensive flashes across his face. "You shut me out," he snaps. "You weren't connecting with me. You were drowning in your emotions, and I was supposed to keep my life moving. I need someone who doesn't drag me down." Lauren's voice, quiet and cautious, comes from the doorway. "Daniel." Emily's head snaps toward her. Lauren steps inside as if she's been waiting outside for a signal to enter. She looks concerned, but there's a stiffness in her posture, like she's braced for impact. "I didn't want to come," Lauren says softly, "but he said it'd be better if everything was clear." Emily's heart twists. "Clear?" Her voice cracks. "What's not clear? You two made it very clear in that hotel room." Daniel runs a hand through his hair. "This marriage hasn't worked for a long time, Emily. You know that. Your parents always treated me like I wasn't good enough. Like I was just some salesman lucky to be in their daughter's life." Emily remembers little moments her father asking Daniel polite but firm questions about long-term plans. Her mother suggesting they save more and spend less. Daniel laughing it off, saying, "Relax, we're young," before rolling his eyes when their backs were turned. She never thought much of it. Daniel's resentment had been growing quietly in the background. "And now," Daniel continues, his voice bitter, "they're gone, and it's like I'm supposed to carry all this weight while you fall apart. I can't live under their shadow anymore." "You were never under their shadow," Emily whispers. "They were just trying to help us be stable." Lauren steps closer to Daniel, hand brushing his arm. "You deserve someone who understands you, Daniel. Someone who matches your energy." Her tone is soft, but every word slices Emily open. Daniel takes a breath, then nods toward the stack of papers. "I filed for divorce last week, before the funeral. My lawyer rushed it because of everything. All that's left is your signature. Once you sign, we can all move on." The floor seems to tilt beneath Emily. "You filed? Before the funeral?" She repeats, numb. He doesn't deny it. She looks down at the papers. Legal. Words blur together, but certain lines stand out. Petition for dissolution. Irreconcilable differences. Proposed division of assets. The proposed division is painfully clear. He keeps most of what's in their joint account in shared investments. She gets the least complicated, least valuable pieces. He's already emptied out almost everything he can move without her consent. Her parents' estate isn't listed anywhere. He hasn't mentioned it once, which tells her one thing. He has no idea what is really coming. Emily's hand shakes as she picks up the pen. She could fight. She could argue. She could drag this out in court. But right now she has nothing left to fight with. No strength, no trust. Just a broken heart and a quiet email from a lawyer about her parents' estate waiting unanswered in her inbox. She signs. Her tears fall onto the page, smudging the ink slightly. Daniel snatches the papers the moment she lifts the pen. "Good," he says, relief, flooding his voice. "We'll get this processed. It's better this way." Better for whom? Emily doesn't ask. She walks toward the hallway, needing to be anywhere but there. She stops when she hears them behind her. Daniel leans in toward Lauren, voice low. "We're finally free," he murmurs. "No more drama. No more expectations." Lauren lets out a soft laugh. "Now we can actually build something. Our way." The words twist in Emily's chest. The scene freezes for a moment on her face shattered. Yes, but somewhere deep in her eyes, a faint spark lights up. Not hope, not yet. Something harder. Something that looks very close to resolve. Micro cliffhanger. As Emily steps outside, her phone buzzes. A new message from the same unknown number as before. It's time she knew everything. Please come to my office tomorrow. Harold Reynolds, attorney for the Carter family. Attached to the message is a clearer, renamed file. Final instructions, Carter family. Trust, for Emily, only. Emily pushes open the large glass doors of the law office so hard the receptionist flinches. Her chest is tight, her eyes tired from too many sleepless nights, her hands trembling around her phone. She's surviving on numb momentum, and the last clear thing in her mind, it's time she knew. Harold Reynolds, attorney for the Carter family. And just below it, that attached file with her family name on it. Her eyes scan the room. A man rises from a corner office, older, tall, calm. There's a steadiness about him that cuts through the fog around her. Miss Carter? He asks gently. Emily nods. I'm Harold Reynolds, he says, your parents' attorney. I've worked with them for over 20 years. Please come in. The intensity softens as Emily steps into his office. The room is quiet and precise. Shelves lined with leather-bound books, framed certificates on the walls, a large wooden desk at the center. On that desk sits a thick folder, sealed with a wax stamp bearing her family crest, the same crest on the necklace around her neck. Emily stops, staring at it. Her throat tightens. Mr. Reynolds gestures to the chair in front of him. Your parents gave very clear instructions, he says softly. They wanted this meeting to happen only after both of them passed, and after you turned 30. Her voice is small. My birthday was 2 months ago. He nods. Yes, they were very deliberate about the timing. He breaks the seal and opens the folder. Emily watches, hardly breathing. Your parents did not just run a small business, Emily. Mr. Reynolds begins. His tone is careful, respectful. They built a holding structure, multiple companies, real estate portfolios, patents, long-term investments. For years, they kept the public appearance modest on purpose. Emily frowns. I never saw any of that. They lived so normal. That was intentional, he says. They didn't want wealth to define your character. They wanted you to grow up kind, grounded, and independent. He slides a printed overview across the desk. One number jumps out at her before she can take in anything else. Total estimated estate value, $298,400,000. Her heart stops. The room tilts for a second. This can't be right, she whispers. They ran a family business. A few properties. That's all. They used that business as a quiet engine, Mr. Reynolds explains. They reinvested profits, acquired other companies through holding entities, expanded into licensing and intellectual property. Most of it is held in trusts and companies under non-obvious names, so they wouldn't draw attention. Emily stares at the page, tears blurring the numbers. Her parents hadn't been just comfortable. They'd been quietly building something enormous for decades. She remembers her father teaching her how to read basic charts at 12, tapping the lines with a Brenning-Bein patient fingertip. These aren't just numbers, he told her. They are decisions, and one day, you'll have to make them too. She remembers her mother at that family event squeezing her hand. This family built something worth protecting, she'd said. Someday it will be your turn to protect it. Emily had smiled then, thinking it was about values. Now she finally understands it was also about assets. Mr. Reynolds continues, laying it out plainly. Your parents placed the bulk of their assets into a trust, he says. The trust becomes fully active and under your control when two conditions are met, your 30th birthday and the passing of both of them. He looks at her kindly. Both conditions have now been met. As of the date of their passing, you are the primary and sole beneficiary and controlling trustee. Emily's fingers dig into the armrests. Everything is in my name? She asks. Yes, he answers. Legally and structurally. We've already begun transferring operational control to you in the background. Publicly, almost nothing has changed yet. That was also part of their strategy. But on paper, you now own and control nearly $300 million worth of assets. She feels tears spill over, But this time it isn't the grief alone. It's the weight of trust. They never told me, she says, voice trembling. Not like this. They just taught me to be good, to be careful, to be loyal. Mr. Reynolds nods. They didn't want you to have power without preparation. They spent years shaping your character first. He reaches into the folder and pulls out a smaller sealed envelope, older, edges slightly worn. There is one more thing, he says. Your father asked me to give you this only if someone ever tried to harm you or take advantage of you emotionally, financially, or legally. Emily's eyes widen. He said that? Yes, Mr. Reynolds replies. He was very specific. I contacted you now because, based on recent filings and activity around your accounts, I believe that condition has been met. Her mind flashes with images. Daniel sliding divorce papers across the table. Lauren standing behind him. The hotel room. The emptying joint account. The feeling of being discarded. She reaches for the envelope with shaking hands. On the front, in her father's handwriting, are the words, "For Emily when trust breaks." Cliffhanger. Her fingers slide under the seal. Just before she opens it, Mr. Reynolds adds quietly, your parents suspected you might one day need protection from people who love the idea of you more than you. Inside, waiting just beyond the torn flap, are documents that don't just reveal what she owns. They reveal who has been circling her, and for how long. The moment Emily closes her apartment door behind her, she doesn't even take off her shoes. She drops her bag, moves straight to the small table, and rips open the envelope labeled "When Trust Breaks." Papers spill out, printed emails, bank records, screenshots, investigation reports, notes in her father's handwriting. Her heart races, her breathing turns sharp. Everything her parents left her is not just wealth, it's information, protection, prepared defense. She grabs the first page. At the top is a header, independent report, subject, Daniel Carter. Below that, a date from 2 years ago. Her chest tightens. 2 years ago, long before the accident. The report is from a private investigator her parents hired after noticing unusual financial behavior and entitlement patterns from Daniel. They hadn't told her not yet. They'd decided to watch first, to be fair. Emily scans the lines. Conversations where Daniel complained about not getting a piece of the family business. Moments he'd hinted to others that Emily would be rich one day, even though she didn't know it. Instances where he tested boundaries with small, unauthorized withdrawals from accounts he had partial access to. Her hands shake. She picks up another page. A printed email. From Lauren Summers to Daniel Carter, date 1 year ago. She's too emotional, too easy to steer. She won't even see it coming if we plan things right. Emily covers her mouth, a broken sound catching in her throat. Her parents hadn't hacked Lauren's inbox themselves. That would have been illegal. But the report explains, through a security consultation and consent-based monitoring of family-associated devices and shared financial platforms, external investigators obtained evidence of conversations routed through shared cloud backups and linked accounts. Technical, clinical, but clear. Lauren had used one of Emily's shared devices once to log into her email years ago. She'd never logged out completely. Her father's security consultant had built quiet alerts after that. Her parents never confronted Emily with this. They documented it. They prepared. The intensity slowly folds into something colder. Emily sinks into the chair. The room falls quiet around her. The pain doesn't scream anymore. It condenses into a focused, sharp line. She spreads all the documents across the table. The black folder from Mr. Reynolds sits open beside them, full of trust schedules and company charts. Next to it, this envelope's contents. Maps of betrayal. She starts to work. First, she studies the empire. For days, she lives on tea and simple meals. She barely leaves the apartment unless necessary. She goes through every file her parents set aside for her training videos her father recorded, memos her mother wrote about how to treat employees with fairness, risk summaries, lists of trusted advisors. At one point, she pauses a video of her father explaining how to spot people who love your access more than they love you. She realizes he recorded it years ago. For her, she writes things down. She highlights. She calls Mr. Reynolds with focused questions. What exactly can a trustee do? What are my rights if my ex-husband misused joint funds? What happens if someone accessed my name for a loan without my informed consent? He answers patiently, sometimes impressed by how fast she's absorbing everything. Then she turns fully to Daniel and Lauren. She prints her bank statements and cross-checks them with the investigator's records. She identifies patterns. Unauthorized charges to hotels, cash withdrawals near places she's never been. A small personal loan taken out 6 months ago that she never signed in person, but that used pre-authorized digital documents linked to her name. She doesn't cry now. She prints out messages between Daniel and Lauren from the report, texts mocking her meltdowns, comments about how she won't fight because she hates conflict, plans for a life once everything is in place. Then she discovers something she didn't expect. Her parents had already rewritten their documents a year ago. In the notes in her father's handwriting, if Daniel continues to show this pattern, Emily must be protected from any claim he could try to make on the estate. They had already taken him out of any future benefit. Quietly, cleanly, legally. She was the only heir. And they never told Daniel. Logic anchored, Emily organizes everything into a new black folder. Investigator reports bank statements showing misuse of joint funds. Records of the loan opened under her name's pre-authorization. Screenshots of Lauren's messages that used Emily's devices and accounts as a bridge. Her parents' written notes about protecting her from Daniel. She sets a meeting with Mr. Reynolds. In his office, she's different now. Not the shattered woman from the hotel, not the hollow figure from the funeral. She walks in wearing a simple but sharp outfit, nothing flashy, but intentional. Her posture is straight. Her eyes are calm in a way that makes them more dangerous than any angry shouting could. Mr. Reynolds opens the folder she places on his desk. He reads page by page, bank statements, investigation results, emails, loan documentation, recorded patterns. His eyebrows rise, then knit, then settle. This is substantial, he says quietly. Emily's voice is soft but steady. They thought I had nothing, that I would just sign whatever they put in front of me. They used my grief to make their exit look clean. She takes a breath. They don't know I own everything now, and they don't know I have this. He closes the folder gently, almost like it's something fragile and powerful at the same time. Emily, he says carefully, if we file this, they won't just lose money. Their reputations, their future credit, their chances with employers, their freedom, depending on what the prosecutors see, could sound, be affected. She doesn't look away. They made their choice, she answers. I'm just making mine. Mr. Reynolds slides one final document across the desk toward her, a freshly drafted civil complaint with Daniel and Lauren's names at the top. Are you ready to file? He asks. Emily looks down at the papers. Her fingers curl around the edge. She doesn't answer with words, but the way she nods tells the audience everything. Subtle foreshadowing. For scene 8. As she steps out of the office, her phone buzzes with a social media notification. Daniel Carter and Lauren Summers updated their status. Married. Music pounds through the lavish reception hall. Guests laugh, clink glasses, and record everything on their phones. Chandeliers sparkle above tables loaded with flowers and expensive wine. At the center of it all, Daniel Carter tugs restlessly at his too-tight collar. His smile is wide, but it doesn't reach his eyes. A faint tension pulls at his jaw. Beside him, Lauren Summers, now in a fitted white dress, diamonds glittering at her neck, radiates carefully curated beauty. But her shoulders are tight. Her eyes move too quickly, scanning faces, gauging reactions. Their wedding happened fast. Too fast. To the guests, they explained it away with phrases like, "We finally realized we were meant to be, and life's too short to wait." They glossed over the fact that Daniel's divorce was barely finalized. They made Emily sound like a sad, distant chapter they'd both been forced to move on from. The truth is simpler. They married quickly because they believed Emily had nothing. No power, no money, no fight left. Tonight, they want to display their fresh start to the world. As the DJ lowers the music for toasts, Daniel taps his knife against his champagne glass. "Thank you all for coming," he calls out, voice amplified by the mic. "Tonight is about new beginnings, about choosing happiness." Lauren laughs, lightly, though her grip on his arm is firm. "Yes, new beginnings," she repeats, "real ones. Some guests cheer, others exchange subtle glances. A few in the room remember Emily, remember seeing her at parties with Daniel, remember the funeral, remember how quickly this new wedding came. As Daniel and Lauren move to the center of the dance floor for their first dance, Daniel leans in and mutters under his breath, "Relax, we did it. She signed. She's gone. We're fine." Lauren's eyes flick up to his. "You don't know that," she whispers. "She never called, never yelled. She just disappeared." He forces a smile, jaw tight. "Because she has nothing left. Trust me." But even as he says it, the camera lingers on Lauren's face. She doesn't truly believe it. The DJ announces, for the first time as husband and wife Daniel and Lauren Carter. The music swells. They begin to dance, moving through the steps they rehearsed. Then the main doors of the Amen reception hall open. Two sharply dressed men enter. Dark suits, professional posture. They don't look like guests. They don't look like servers. They move with the focused confidence of people who belong there for one specific purpose. They hold thick envelopes. Whispers ripple across the room. Phones lower. Eyes track them. The two men walk straight toward the center of the dance floor. Daniel slows, confused. "Can I help you?" he asks, irritation creeping into his voice. One of the men speaks clearly. "Daniel Carter?" Daniel nods, still half holding Lauren. The man hands him a thick envelope. "You've been served with a civil complaint." The room gasps. Lauren stiffens. The second man turns to her. "Lauren Summers?" Lauren's voice cracks. "Yes?" He hands her another envelope. "You've also been served." The music cuts off abruptly. The room falls into a stunned hush. Daniel tears open his envelope with shaking hands. Pages spill out legal language, highlighted lines, evidence lists. Lauren does the same, fingers trembling so hard the papers rattle. Daniel's eyes race across the first page. "Plaintiff, Emily Carter," he reads under his breath. His throat tightens. He flips through the next pages and reads snippets out loud, losing control. Count 1. Fraud and misrepresentation in use of joint assets. Count 2. Unauthorized access and misuse of financial instruments. Count 3. Misappropriation of confidential business information belonging to the Carter family holdings. Count 4. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. His voice cracks on the last words. Lauren reads her copy, her face draining as she sees her own name, repeatedly listed as co-defendant. There are screenshots of messages, summaries of investigator reports, bank records, loan documents, all neatly organized, all sourced. Their betrayal has been printed and bound. Guests whisper louder now. "Is that Emily's name? Did she sue them? I thought she was broke." Lauren turns to Daniel, panicked. "You said she had nothing. You said there was no money, no company. You said it was just a small business." Before he can respond, the doors open again. Emily steps inside. She stands in the doorway wearing a simple black dress, elegant, calm, not flashy. Beside her walks Mr. Reynolds, holding another file labeled in bold letters. Referral packet, potential criminal proceedings. Gasps ripple through the hall. Phones rise again, not out of celebration this time, but out of stunned curiosity. Daniel steps back instinctively. Lauren grips his arm like it's the only solid thing left. Emily's eyes lock onto them. There's no screaming, no tears, only a quiet, steady fire. She walks forward, stops just far enough for everyone to see her clearly, and says in a low, controlled voice that carries through the silent hall, "The storm starts now." Subtle. Foreshadowing for Scene 9. As the camera pulls back, a brief news alert pops up on someone's phone screen in the crowd. High-profile civil case filed by heiress Emily Carter hearing, scheduled in 3 months. The battle has only begun. Months later, Daniel bursts through the double doors of the courthouse, flanked by his attorney and pushed forward by security trying to control the crowd. His tie is crooked, his hair is disheveled. Gone is the confident man from sales pitches and wedding videos. Reporters shout questions, microphones thrust forward. "Mr. Carter, is it true your ex-wife now controls a $300 million empire?" "Daniel, how do you respond to the fraud allegations?" "Lauren, did you knowingly use Emily's accounts?" Lauren walks just behind him, sunglasses hiding her eyes, but her shaking hands give her away. Her mascara is already smudged. She wasn't ready for this level of public exposure. They push through the chaos and into the courtroom. Inside, everything is quiet. Emily sits at the plaintiff's table in a tailored black outfit, not flamboyant professional. Her posture is straight. Her hands rest lightly on the table beside a large binder labeled Evidence, Carter v. Carter et al. Beside her is Mr. Reynolds, calm, organized, his notes lined up in neat stacks. Emily doesn't flinch when Daniel enters. She doesn't even look surprised. She simply lifts her eyes, meets his for a brief second, and then looks away as if he's no longer central to the story. The judge enters. Everyone rises. The atmosphere thickens with tension. When everyone sits again, the pacing slows into heavy reflection. Daniel steals glances at Emily, desperate for any sign of the woman who once forgave him for minor mistakes, who used to smooth over the rough edges of his life. He doesn't find her here. Lauren keeps her eyes down. Her lawyer whispers to her about minimizing damage and considering settlement options. Her throat moves as she swallows hard. The judge speaks. We are here today to hear the matter of Emily Carter versus Daniel Carter and Lauren Summers on civil claims including fraud, unauthorized use of financial instruments, misappropriation of confidential business information, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The list alone makes Daniel close his eyes for a second. Mr. Reynolds stands. Your Honor, the plaintiff will show a clear pattern of financial manipulation and personal exploitation carried out during a period when Miss Carter was emotionally vulnerable and unaware of her legal and financial position. He begins with the bank records. Screens display statements showing transfers from Emily and Daniel's joint accounts into Daniel's personal accounts during the weeks leading up to the divorce filing, larger and more frequent than normal. Then records show payments to hotels, the same hotel where Emily found them. Documents appear, showing the loan taken under Emily's pre-authorized profile timed just before the divorce, with funds routed primarily through accounts Daniel controlled. Then come the messages. Projected on the courtroom screens are texts between Daniel and Lauren from months earlier. We just have to wait till she's too drained to argue. One from Daniel reads. She won't fight anything. She hates conflict, Lauren replies. Once the dust settles, we'll be on our own with the money, another says. Lauren lets out a strangled sound, hand flying to her mouth. Those messages, Mr. Reynolds explains, were captured through legally obtained cloud backups and investigator reports initiated by Miss Carter's parents when they first noticed troubling behavior. Emily rises to take the stand. She places her hand on the rail and answers the standard questions. Her voice is soft but steady. I didn't know the true size of my parents' estate, she says. They never used money to control me. They taught me values instead. When they died, I was grieving, and I was still processing my loss when my husband filed for divorce. She glances at Daniel. I did not know he'd already moved most of the money he could access from our joint accounts. I did not understand that he had taken out a loan using my profile. I didn't realize Lauren had been advising him behind my back for over a year. Daniel shifts in his seat, guilt and panic twisting his face. I trusted them, Emily continues. While I was planning funerals, they were planning a future without me, with my resources and my name. She doesn't raise her voice. That makes it worse. The judge listens carefully, expression unreadable. When Emily finishes and returns to her seat, Daniel suddenly stands. Your Honor, he blurts, this has been blown out of proportion. We were confused, overwhelmed. I made mistakes, but I loved Emily. I was just trying to secure yourself a safe and financial cushion in case the small family business turned out to be bigger than you thought? Mr. Reynolds asks, interrupting smoothly. The courtroom murmurs. Daniel's lawyer tries to object, but the damage is done. After hours of testimony, cross-examinations, and evidence review, the judge leans forward. In civil matters like these, he begins, we look at intent, pattern, and impact. The evidence shows that Daniel Carter and Lauren Summers engaged in repeated financial actions that undermined Emily Carter's position during a period of grief and vulnerability. He reads the findings. On the claim of fraud and misrepresentation in use of joint assets liable. On the claim of unauthorized use of financial instruments liable. On the claim of misappropriation of confidential business information liable. On the claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress, liable. With each word, Daniel seems to sink further into his seat. The judge continues. All remaining assets held by Daniel Carter connected to these actions are to be frozen or redirected as restitution to Emily Carter, subject to further accounting. Lauren Summers is jointly liable for the portions where her involvement is documented. Lauren gasps, No, I can't. Her lawyer squeezes her arm, signaling her to stay quiet. Daniel turns to her, voice hoarse. We'll figure this out. Together. For the first time, Lauren looks at him with clarity. I didn't sign up for this, she whispers. I thought you were going to be the one with money, Daniel. I didn't think you'd lose everything. Cliffhanger. Before he can answer, a court officer approaches Daniel with a separate piece of paper. Mr. Carter, the officer says, you are requested to remain available. There has been a preliminary referral from this case file to the district attorney's office for review of potential criminal charges. Emily watches quietly. As Daniel reads those words, and in her eyes, there isn't triumph. There's something quieter. A hard-earned peace beginning to take shape. Daniel's stunned face, still holding that paper about possible criminal review, lingers in Emily's mind for a moment as she steps out of the courthouse. Reporters shout, cameras flash, microphones reach toward her like metal hands. Emily, how does it feel to win? Did you know you were an heiress all along? Do you have a message for Daniel and Lauren? She doesn't answer any of them. She walks through the noise as if it's far away, like sound underwater. Her steps are steady. Her face is calm, not cold, not gloating, just done. Every shout behind her sounds smaller with each step she takes. Later that afternoon, Emily stands in her parents' old office. Sunlight filters in through the large window, dust floating gently in the air. The same desk where her father once spread out charts and plans is now covered with fresh documents, neatly arranged. Trust paperwork, company reports, and a few new forms she signed earlier. On the top of one stack is a document titled Carter Foundation for Family Businesses. She runs her fingers lightly over the words. She isn't setting it up to prove anything to Daniel or Lauren. It has nothing to do with them anymore. This is for her parents, for what they believed in, for the way they started as a small business and grew into something powerful without ever forgetting their roots. She signs the final line. A quiet sense of rightness settles over her. She locks the office, walks out of the building, and drives to the cemetery. The air is cool. The sky is soft gray with slivers of light pushing through. The world feels strangely still, as if it's pausing with her. She walks slowly between rows of headstones until she reaches the two that mean everything. Richard Carter, Margaret Carter, simple, dignified, just like they lived. Emily kneels and places two, white lilies at the base of the stone. Her fingertips rest on the names. Her voice cracks softly as she speaks. I wish you could see it, she whispers. The company, the foundation, the way everything you build is still standing. I hope I did it right. She swallows. I thought I would break, she admits, when you died, when they betrayed me, when he left. But every time I thought I was done, I heard your voices in my head, telling me to stand up, to protect what matters, to protect myself. A light breeze moves through the trees, brushing her hair back. It feels like an answer. I lost the people who loved me first, but I found the strength they always knew I had. Emily stands slowly. She looks at the lilies one more time, then turns away, not because she's leaving them behind, but because she's finally ready to walk forward. With each step toward her car, her posture straightens. Her face softens but doesn't fall. She isn't pretending to be okay. She is okay. This is not the Emily who signed divorce papers with shaking hands. Not the Emily who drove to a hotel begging to be wrong. Not the Emily who curled into herself on the floor at the sound of bad news. This is the Emily her parents prepared quietly, patiently, for years. The Emily no one saw coming. Final cinematic line, soft as an exhale. They thought they destroyed me, but all they did was free me. She reaches her car. As she opens the door, her phone buzzes with a new notification from an unknown number. She glances at the screen, brows lifting slightly, not afraid this time, just curious. The message preview reads, Miss Carter, we heard about how you handled your family's empire. We have a proposal we'd like you to consider. Subtle foreshadowing hint. Emily smiles faintly, not because she needs another fight, but because now, for the first time, she gets to choose which stories she enters and which ones she walks away from. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.